Exiled Tibetan spiritual leader the Dalai Lama is in Australia for a 10-day tour and has called on China to investigate the reasons behind self-immolations. At least 117 Tibetans have set themselves alight in protest against Chinese rule since 2009, mostly in heavily Tibetan areas of Sichuan, Gansu and Qinghai provinces. The Dalai Lama said the immolations were a sensitive political issue, but Tibetans were not sacrificing their lives because of simple social or family grievances.
This is a symptom of some causes. So the Chinese officials now must investigate what is the causes of this symptom, or of this of this event. Like that, it is not sufficient just to blame someone, including Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama created these things. If some help, blame on me, it really solved the problem, then okay, I'm happy to take all blames, but it won't help.
Well, China has tightened already strict controls in Tibet since the self-immolations began and has all but banned visits by foreign journalists. Well, to China's leaders, the Dalai Lama is a terrorist. He wants to split the nation. As we've seen, his followers see him as someone they would follow to their deaths. China has shown in the past it is prepared to play tough with nations who host the Dalai Lama. Beijing these days has a lot of power to throw around. Well, joining me now is China analyst Jie Chen from the University of Western Australia. Nice to have you here on the program. You know, you often hear from China that the Dalai Lama encourages these self-immolations. Is there any validity in that?
Well, I have heard a lot about Chinese accusations that these are self-immolation, more than 100 of them now, are caused by the instigation from the government in exile. But I also see the counter-arguments from the Dalai Lama and his people based in Dharamsala. I don't think there's much evidence there to suggest that the government in exile has been behind all this.
But do you hear a condemnation from the Dalai Lama to actually encourage people to stop carrying out this sort of practice?
Well, I think he has been in a very difficult position on this issue. Self-immolation, it is tragic, but it is also highly political because these people who have committed it, are supposed to be campaigning for the Tibetan cause. So that's something that, of course, shows support for the Dalai Lama himself. On the other hand, Buddhism and what Dalai Lama stands for is, in fact, very much, for the cherishing of human lives. So he is in a very difficult position. Of course, from his point of view, these people are martyrs for political cause. On the other hand, what they did is actually against his teaching.
Now, this is what the Chinese government says. It says it's improving the lives of Tibetans. It says that it has developed Tibet, developed better schools, better hospitals, there are more employment opportunities, and the Tibetans are better off under Chinese rule. Is there something to support that argument?
Well, materially speaking, living standards in Tibet are improving. However, we need to put it into perspective. First of all, Tibet, as well as other ethnic minority zones in China, are lagging far behind the coastal provinces in terms of economic growth. Second, I don't think the Chinese central government fully understands what Tibetans really want. Now, you can't say, I give you more clothes, more food to feed yourself, but without letting you, seeing the Dalai Lama, your living Buddha, and your culture is something that I am in a position to interpret. Now, that's really not something that the Tibetan religiously and politically want.
The Tibetans have also said that they face an ethnic cleansing, that they are being driven out of Tibet, overrun by Han Chinese. Is that also the case?
Well, demographically speaking, there is some truth in it. Traditionally, the Tibetan region was quite big. What we've got today, the Tibet Autonomous Region, although it is now 8% of the Chinese territory, is roughly just half of its historical self. So the 6 million Tibetans are now scattered everywhere, not just in the autonomous region, but also in western Sichuan, in Yunnan, in Gansu, in Qinghai, so on and so forth. So in a way you can say Tibet is no longer as isolated as it was, no longer had the sort of cultural and spiritual autonomy as it used to enjoy when the Dalai Lama was around.
Now, why is it that 6 or 7 million Tibetans threaten 1.3 billion people of China? What is the Chinese government concerned about?
Well, as we all know, today the Chinese government is very much concerned with what it has defined as core national interest, that is territorial integrity and national sovereignty. And that, of course, includes Tibet and Xinjiang. And also look at the strategic location of Tibet. It is between China proper and India, between China and South Asia, and it's very important. It has got very major rivers and natural resources, and it is a connection between China and the other very important parts of Central Asia. So I would say for all sorts of reasons, Tibet is important to China, and also the fact that Tibet has got a government in exile, which is highly institutional, deeply entrenched, with Dalai Lama ever being popular in Western culture. Now that's really a challenge to Chinese diplomacy.
Now, is there also a concern in China that any splittist group, as they call them, any breakaway group, religious or ethnic group that wants to split from China, poses a threat to China itself, that if one group could break up, others may follow? The real fear of the Chinese government is the splintering of their own country.
Well, China, given its history, the so-called century of national humiliation, is hypersensitive about national separatism, which unfortunately for Beijing has become more serious in the post-Cold War era. But I would always like to single out Tibet, because compared to other potential or real separatist movements working overseas, Tibet is quite unique, because we've got this 14th Dalai Lama who won